Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Rachel and welcome to a very exciting recommendations video. So today we are going to be talking about beach reads. I have quite a few books to share with you all that I consider to be perfect books to take on vacation, to read on the beach. I have a combination of contemporary romance and also some fantasy romances, and I am doing this video in collaboration with a bunch of other amazing creators. I will have their channels and their videos linked down below so you can go and get all of the beach read recommendations. As we enter summer, people are going to be spending more time outside, maybe going on vacation, perhaps laying on the beach, and you are going to need a perfect book to take along with you. So that is what we will be talking about today. So first things first, I'm going to define what I consider a beach read. Number one, I think a beach read needs to be something that is generally light-hearted. I don't want to be devastated on the beach. I want to be happy, I want to be living life, I want to be giggling, maybe some butterflies in my stomach. I generally think that light-hearted books, no matter the genre, are the perfect beach read. I also think a book that is not too densely written. I think a book that is a little bit more fast-paced, nothing too complicated, not super convoluted world building, plotting, magic systems. Overall, I just want to keep things fun and light when I am reading a book on the beach. I also think books that are not too long. I personally cannot imagine reading Kingdom of Ash on the beach. I'm sure it has been done, but that is definitely not the type of book that I look for when I just want to relax on the beach and have a good time and read a fun book. So those are the parameters for what I think a beach read is. Just light, fun, nothing too dense, and generally just a book that makes me feel really good. So let's get started. I'm first going to talk about the contemporary romances that I think are perfect beach reads. So the very first book that I want to recommend as a perfect beach read is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. So number one, this is my favorite Emily Henry book. It is Friends to Lovers. We follow our two characters while they are currently on vacation together as they navigate their friendship after some time apart, but we also go back in time and watch them over the years go on many trips together. So we have this vacation element. We also just have a lot of humor, really amazing banter, and because there is an established friendship between our characters, the book just feels very joyful and very fun. I also think that this is the least emotional book that Emily Henry has published. I understand the irony that Emily Henry does have a book called Beach Read, and while I do absolutely love that book, it is pretty emotional and there are some tougher topics handled. While I think this book from her is the most joyful, it focuses the most on romance, and we don't really have too many heavy moments, so that is why I think it makes the perfect beach read. Truly, this is like my number one recommendation for a beach read. It is so much fun, incredibly fast-paced, and a perfect book. My next beach read recommendation is going to be Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I just love this book so much. It is so popular for a reason. It is so much fun. If you don't know what this book is about, it is a romance between the son of the President of the United States and then the Prince of England. They kind of start out as adversaries, but they slowly start to get along for PR purposes and then fall in love. When I was reading this book, I felt like I was watching an early 2000s rom-com, which is the highest compliment that I can pay a book. It is just so much fun. There are so many different kind of hijinks that our characters get into. It's a little bit like dramatic at times, but in the best way, and seeing our two characters fall in love was just amazing. I think it's a very, very well done romance, and the humor in this book is just top tier. This is also a book that I think I read in one sitting, which is also the perfect beach read, a book that you don't want to put down and you just smile the entire time while you read it. All right, and the final contemporary romance that I wanted to recommend to you all as a perfect beach read is Heartless. I gotta talk about my girl, okay? Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is probably my favorite contemporary romance of all time. It is perfect. I think that it is the creme de la creme of the nanny single dad trope. It's amazing. No notes. I recommend this book as a beach read because of our lovely characters. So our female main character, Willa, she is so fiery, she is so funny, she is so witty, and she just brings an energy to this book that makes it addicting. You just want to hear what is the next thing that is going to come out of Willa's mouth. And then we have Cade, our grumpy single dad. I just love him. I just love him so much, and his and Willa's dynamic is just so interesting and so juicy because they are so opposites but are fighting the most tension-filled attraction to one another. This book is a ton of fun, has great spice, and is truly just like everything to me, so this makes a wonderful beach read as well. All right, so while I do think contemporary romance is truly like the perfect genre for a beach read, this is a fantasy romance house, okay? We have to discuss my absolute favorite genre of all time. Now, there are many, many fantasy romances that I absolutely love, but I would not recommend as a beach read because they are long, they are densely written, they have very emotional moments, they have complex world building, and I think when you are on the beach reading, you should just be having fun. You should just be plopped into a fantasy world, run alongside our female main character character as she goes on a journey and hopefully falls in love. So I do have actually quite a few fantasy romances here that I think are well paced. I think that the magic systems aren't too complex, the writing is not too dense, and I think that they would be really easily consumed and are also super bingeable. So first off, we have A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This book to me is a perfect fantasy romance as a beach read. Our main character Arwen ends up getting kidnapped by a rival kingdom, and she works as a healer in the Onyx Kingdom's castle. While she tries to navigate what is really going on in the world, what is going on with the war, she makes some friends and begrudgingly gets to know the vicious Onyx King. Why I think this fan row is a great beach read is because the focus on the romance in this book is the main point. We do have some fantasy elements, but they're pretty surface level. There isn't a ton of world building happening in this book. The writing is super easy to get through, and it's a pretty short book as well. The banter between our characters is just so good, and this book has a romance that is at the forefront of the story. It is highlighted in nearly every single scene, and that is what you are here for when you're reading this book. So I think it's a really great book to sit down with and binge and have such a good time with. The next book that I would recommend as a beach read is actually a fantasy romance that I read fairly recently, and that is Heartless Hunter. So this is an enemies to lovers fantasy romance between a witch and a witch hunter. And when I read this book, I was so impressed by the pacing. This book is so fast paced. It is so fun. It really does not have any moments that are dull for me that I feel like we kind of have to slog through. It is truly breakneck at times, but so enjoyable. And while there are magical elements, there's nothing too complex in here. And I think that this is a book that you could read on the beach and have a really good time with, get through, and not feel like you need to super pay attention to those fantasy elements because they're all explained in a very accessible way. And really the shining stars of this book are our two main characters. Gideon and Rune are amazing. Their dynamic between one another is just so gripping and extremely unputdownable. There are definitely a couple emotional moments in this book, I will say, but overall I think that this book is very fun, and I think shedding one or two tears on the beach is fine, but you won't be sobbing when you're reading this book, basically. I just think it's so much fun and truly want everyone to read it, and it has such amazing ratings and reviews for a reason. So my next recommendation is going to be The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen. So the reason why I'm recommending both of these books is because I do prefer the second book. This first book is good, it's fine, she is there, but I think that the second book is even better. And the reason why I wanted to recommend this one is because we have a beachy setting in this book, which I feel like is pretty rare for fantasy and fantasy romance. This book does take place on an island in a jungle setting. There's a lot of focus on being in the water and being in this very like humid jungle, the animals that they find there, and I feel like that the setting is so important to the plot and is highlighted a number of times. So I think that reading a fantasy romance in a sort of like tropical setting while you're on the beach, that is the biggest slay of all time. In this book, we have enemies to lovers, and we have the wonderful trope of I am supposed to kill you, but our female main character is sent to kill a rival king, but she ends up falling for him. The first book ends on a crazy cliffhanger, so you will definitely want to continue on to the second one, and I just really liked this one, and the pacing of this book is amazing, especially the first 50%. You will not blink while you're reading, truly. Like, I could not put this book down, and I think that this would be a super fun vacation read. The next book that I will be recommending as a really great beach read is one that I feel like kind of funny recommending because I feel like so many people have read this book. You will know exactly what I mean as soon as I hold it up, but I have got some people in my real life to read this book recently, and they loved it. They consumed it so quickly. It was literally like one and done, couldn't put it down, so much fun. And I feel like the writing really lends itself to a very fun, relaxed reading experience. It's not too complicated. I feel like the reader gets dropped right into the world and is immediately taken along for the ride. And that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. Ever heard of it? Once again, I know that this is already a very popular book, but this is like the perfect vacation read to me. If you're curious about fantasy romance, if you want to give it a shot, you've heard a lot about this ACOTAR series, take this on vacation with you. Go sit on the beach and read about how Feyre has to fight a Midden-Guard worm. I also think that this lends itself to be a very digestible and just fun read because it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which is something I forget all the time about ACOTAR, that it starts out as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I think because of that familiarity, it can draw in a reader very easily. Also feel like with this book, the plot really builds and ramps up as the story goes on. So I think that when you start it, you're gonna be having fun, it's a silly, goofy time, and then things get real very quickly. But by that point, you have been brought in by our characters, by the intrigue of it all, and I feel like this book is so fast-paced and so fun and would be a really fantastic beach read. All right, and the final beach read recommendation that I have for you, this was a no-brainer. As soon as I found out I was doing this video, I knew that I was going to talk about this book, and that is The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. The reason why this book is so perfectly suited to be a beach read is because of the aesthetic, the vibe, and the setting of this book. This book takes place out on the high seas. We have a Pirates of the Caribbean-esque storyline mixed with fae fantasy romance. It truly does not get more beachy than that when it comes to fantasy. We also have such an engaging plot line. Our female main character gets kidnapped by our male main character as he takes revenge on her father, and she is forced to sail to his sea fae kingdom alongside his salty crew on their amazing magical ship. There is such an atmospheric quality to LJ Andrews' writing, and we spend lots of time talking about being in the water, being near the ocean, what that means to the sea fae in this book. I know that we wash up on a beach at some point, and the amazing enemies to lovers arc between our two main characters is so good. I am also in love with the male main character in this book. He is perfect, no notes. He has a little gold hoop earring and a white billowy shirt. What more do we want in this world? So I think this is an amazing beach read. This and The Bridge Kingdom is definitely the most like aesthetically similar to a beach, and the storyline is really great. The writing is amazing. Once again, not super convoluted plot lines or magic systems, just a straightforward Pirates of the Caribbean good time. All right, friends, so that is going to be it for my beach read recommendations. Please leave down in the comments below, what are your perfect beach read recommendations, both contemporary romance and fantasy romance? Maybe if you have some thriller recs as well, I would absolutely love to know. And if you made it to this point in the video, go ahead and leave any type of emoji that represents the beach. It could be the sun, it could be a palm tree, it could be a wave, whatever your heart desires. Please make sure that you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads. They are always linked down below. And please make sure that you do check out the other creators who also made beach read recommendation videos. Once again, those will be linked down below as well. I really appreciate that you watched this video. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. I love you all so much, and I will catch you guys in the next one.